Hello and welcome to Fishy Work Episode 4, Union Power. In this episode, we're going to be speaking with Bright Maté Kweku Chai, a former fisher and boatswain on industrial trawls, semi-industrial and artisanal vessels. Bright now acts as a local chairman for NUSPAW, the National Union for Sea, Port and Allied Workers in Ghana. And we're also joined by Vanessa Jaiteh, a senior research scientist at the Centre for Development and Environment at the University of Bern in Switzerland. Vanessa and Bright joined me after an intense workshop they were both at in Ghana, which brought together various stakeholders, researchers, trade unionists, representatives from the local state, who are all working together towards improving or trying to improve the working conditions of fishers. We talk about the International Labour Organization's Work in Fishing Convention, C118, also the role of fish mummies, that's the local female fish traders who also can lend money or pre-finance trips, trawlers, which are referred to as China at one point because of who owns them, along with many, many other things. I just wanted to give a quick local terminology heads up before diving into the conversation. As always, please do stick around at the end for our Not in the Net Alin Kadfak, who as ever has all her hot takes on the conversation that she just listened to. All right, let's get on with the episode. Okay, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome Vanessa and Bright to Fishy Work. How are you both doing today?
Yeah, good.
Very well, thank you.
Great. I'm really excited about diving into the discussion and finding out about fish work in Ghana. One of the things that we've covered so far on the podcast has been some of the troubles faced at sea, some of the issues faced by fish workers when they're sometimes exploited, both physically and in terms of their pay and so on, by captains and by the systems at work. But I think we want in this episode really talk about how people are organizing to make things better. And I think you two are the best two people to possibly speak about this from a particular case's perspective, but I think in general it's going to be pretty interesting for other people in other situations as well. I think it's going to be super interesting for people in other contexts as well to understand how you've been organizing and what you've been doing. So let's start there. Like, what is the situation in Ghana at the moment with fish workers? What have you been doing in terms of organizing, and what are the main channels through which you have been trying to improve the working conditions of those who labor at sea?
So 2 years ago, I was here in Ghana and I was doing a study on safety and labor conditions of fishers, both in the industrial trawl fishery, but also the semi-industrial and artisanal fisheries. And at the time, working conditions were really very bad. And we had a workshop at the end of this project and brought together a lot of different stakeholders to discuss these issues and to have a platform for fishers to voice their concerns to government agencies, NGOs, the CSOs, and so on. And I think after that, in the 2 years that have followed, we've seen a really big push to support fish workers, bring in better conditions. Ghana has just ratified C188, the Work in Fishing Convention of the ILO. So I think on the policy level, we've actually seen a really big development. But what we found out in the workshop that we've had just this week on Monday is that it hasn't really trickled down to the fish workers. They're not really seeing much of or feeling much of the effects of those policies. And some policies that are supposed to benefit them, such as contracts, we found that they have some hidden disadvantages that nobody, I guess, could see coming.
Yeah, for those fishers who are not seeing the change for now, is that we requested for contract papers, which we have. We requested for a union, which we have. We requested for medical examination, which we have. But all these medical examination papers, documents were not given to them. They will not give you to the contract paper to read or go through and see and understand what is in the contract, whether you like it or not before signing. And after you sign, and then they take it back from you and hide it in the office. And the fishers also are claiming those things were not given to them for them to see. So this is the reason why the fishers were saying they haven't seen the change. So that is the reason why the sailors or the fishers were not having the confidence in the change. Yeah.
So the big question is why? You have a trade union. As you also mentioned, there's the ratification of the International Labour Organization Treaty. So on a policy level, on an organizational level, you could say there's progress. But as you just detailed now, Bright, there are still many, many issues there. So what's the disconnect? Why haven't these changes led to improved conditions for fishers?
Okay, I think there are several reasons. One is that fisheries need to be profitable, and some of these policies are very well-intentioned, but they don't work well with the way the system here works. And so when it comes to implementing the policies, you run into all kinds of troubles, and you run into resistance from the people that the fish workers actually depend on. So Bright mentioned the crew managers, for example. They are people that represent the license owners, and the license owners are usually high-level officials or well-off people here in Ghana. In Ghana's waters, any trawl vessel has to be Ghana flagged, but it's a system called the beneficial ownership. So behind the Ghanaian license owner, there is still a Chinese owner that operates the vessel. Is that right?
Yes.
And so the money flows are complicated, and that's why the crew managers can still have their jobs and basically withhold wages from what they call sailors here, fishers. And another example that I'm really interested in my research is this formalization of labor through contracts. So the fishers used to be paid a certain amount. I think it was 800 cedis.
800.
And then they would get around 4 cartons of fish, they call it. It's like boxes of fish. And they'd sell 3 to a fish mummy. These are women who buy the fish, and they take 1 home for the family to eat. Once the contracts came in, the value of that fish was included in the contract in the wages. So now the fishers don't get carton fish anymore. But that's causing problems. First of all, you can't really come home as a fisher after a fishing trip and not bring home fish. And secondly, it's disrupting the relationship between fishers and fish mummies. And that's a really important socio-financial safety network, which is not accounted for in a Western template for a contract. So it's a well-intentioned instrument, but it's actually disrupting very important networks. And so just today I spoke to 2 fish mummies, and they said, all the fishers are coming to us now. Right now it's the closed season in Ghana. There's 2 months where the trawlers cannot go fishing. And the fishers need money, and they come to their fish mummies and ask for loans. But the fish mummies haven't been getting fish from them, so they're not willing to lend money to them.
That's absolutely fascinating. It totally reminds me of when I was a student and I did a summer job cleaning caravans in France. And we also had our accommodation included, so basically taken out of our wages. And we used to ask, so then can we just stay in a tent and then get that money? And they said, no, because it's in your contract. I really want to zone in on that idea of the relationships, because I think that's really, really key, and maybe something that those people who aren't familiar with Ghana or fish work in general really understand. So the fisher is probably in a whole web of relations at any one time, both onshore and offshore. So I was wondering whether, Bright, you can talk a little bit about the importance of those relationships when you're trying to think through possible improvements, or maybe these are some relationships which can also hold them back as well.
As a bosun, we call it here as a bosun. That's a leader of the crew on board, apart from captain, chief engineer. But the Ghanaian leader of the crew is called bosun or boatswain. So when we come back, we have a fish we call logo fish. So the captain gives us that fish, and that fish is what we used to sell to the fish mummies, and they also have a job over there to do, because they don't have any job. If we don't bring the fish, they also don't have a job to do. So we bring the fish to them and they sell, and they also make money from there and pay us. And if we are offshore or we go to sea and there is a problem at home, those fish mummies, we call them to solve the problem. Or maybe you are at risk. You came back home and then any accident, you are sick or you go to hospital, you can call that fish mummies. They will come and help you in terms of financial problems. So those are the value chains of the logo fish or the fish or the shellfish we have the bringing home. And now it's all put in the contract and turned into money for the fishes. So the fish mummies also don't have a job anymore. And the fishers also don't have what it takes to tell the fish mummy that I'm in need, support me in terms of financial. But the shellfish must be given to the fishes so that the fish mummy also can have a job to do. And the contract paper must still be given, and the medical examination and all those things must still be given.
I think it's also really fascinating to talk about the other people who benefit from the logo
the
fish.
Fishmongers.
Like the captain would give you fish to sell and bring him back the money.
Yes, yes. Sometimes the captain also need money to go out. Maybe his payment is in China. They don't pay him over here. So he also give out a fish to the boatswain to sell to the fish mummy and bring the money to them so that they can also use it for their needs. Yeah.
What are those needs specifically?
Sometimes they go to casino, go to visit their girlfriends, and those are the things.
And the girlfriends that cost money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of money.
It's also interesting that I was thinking about, I'm actually also a researcher, and I research in India amongst tuk-tuk drivers, rickshaw drivers. And on a stand there, if one of the drivers gets sick, then the other drivers, they gather some money, they take it to the wife so that she can support herself when the driver is sick and he can't earn. And I think the importance of these informal relations are really, really key, partly for economic security, but also for a much deeper sense of solidarity that can build up over time. So I wonder, is there any way, if this economic relationship that exists between the fishers and the fish mummies and other people involved, if the economic relation is gone, does that mean any other form of solidarity or friendship and everything else falls to pieces? Or do you actually need that financial transaction to keep those relationships working?
Yeah. For the fishers, they need that solidarity between them and the fish mummies, because the fish mummies always help them. And without the fish that the fisher will bring to the fish mummy can never help the fisher, because you bring me something and I benefit from, and when you need something I also help you. So that is how it goes over there. Yeah.
But I spoke to two fish mummies just now, and I have a sense that yes, they cannot help them anymore. They said we can't help them. It's hard to see that they are asking us for money. Maybe their wife is pregnant, they need to buy things and we just can't help them. But it doesn't seem like they're bitter. They understand the reason. It's not the fishers' fault. It was funny also because I said to them, well, the fishers are getting money now, so they could just give you money. And they said, no, they don't do that. And I said, do the fishers save the money? Because they're getting more than they used to. They're supposed to save it for the closed season. And they laughed and said, you know that men are not good with money the way we as women are. Yeah, so I think there is solidarity still. I asked the women if they're going to go back to port after the closed season to see if things improve. And they said, yes, for sure, we'll go back and see if we can get some fish. But they also said that some of the fish mummies have, they're just struggling too much. And so they're taking a train in the early morning to Accra, and they come and buy things like soap and dishwashing liquid and sell that. And they're trying to make alternative livelihoods.
Yeah. A couple of reflections, one on the gendered nature of money, but also about the different, I guess, the earmarking of pay, like things that you decide to do certain things with. I just think that there's this old image of factories in the UK where I'm from. The men used to be paid every Friday, and their wives would be waiting at the factory gates to take the money off them before they went to the pub, because then they would drink the money, and then there'd be no food for the week ahead. Sort of that story reminded me of that. But I also, maybe more interesting is that when you're paid in money versus when you're paid in fish, what does that do to the mindset in terms of what you have? I mean, like does it just fall into a different category in terms of what you can use the money for? And does it take time to unlearn those categories?
Yeah, when you pay in fish and the money, the reason why we want the fish is we create a job also for someone to do. And the money, when I take the money instead of the fish, I take it for my own, for myself. And the other person don't have a job to do. Mm-hmm. Do you get what I mean? Yeah, so when the other person don't get a job to do, when I blow up my money and I'm in need of money, that person can't help me because he don't have a job to do. So we need a fish to come back, and in some way, we need the money different and the fish also different. That is how we want it to be done. Okay,
so how do you go about changing it?
Yeah, we talk to our union. For the next bargaining, they can take the shellfish out from the contract money and make it a fish for us. Because some of the crew managers or the operation managers don't like the union. And when you are a fisher and you mention that I'm in the union, then they have to find ways and means and drop you from the vessel. But I think now we are picking up very well now, because most of them have seen that we came, the organization or the union came not to harm them, the operation managers, but just to, the union is there for the both employer and employee. So some of them are getting knowledge about that. So this is a new thing in the fishing industry in Ghana.
Yeah, because 2 years ago when I interviewed all of you,
nobody
was in a union. Yeah. And I wasn't allowed to ask about unions because of the ethics requirements of my university at the time. But without being prompted, nearly half of all the fishers we interviewed said that we needed a union to fight for us and to stand up for our rights. But I think there was also a bit of misunderstanding about what a union does and what it can do and cannot do for fishers. And so I think over these 2 years, there's a lot more clarity for the fishers now about it, right?
But then, 2017, we came up as a union, but it doesn't stand because a lot of operation managers or the companies say, if you join the union, we will not take you on the vessel. And we talked to them before they came to understand it. So we called most of the sailors or the fishers in a meeting and explain things, how the things will be to them, for them to understand how union can help a fisher or a member before some of them pick it up from there and then join the union fully. So most of them now are not afraid. Some of them now are not afraid to say I'm in the union, but most of them are afraid because when you say I'm in the union, you have to sack you from the vessel.
Years ago, in 2017, you were threatened even with voodoo curses, no?
Yes.
They threatened the fishers that they would curse them if they joined the union.
Wow. And did they?
They threatened me. Some say they will take me to Benin. Some say they will take me to North. And they are going to kill me. Togo, they are going to kill me. I said, I just had enough. If you want to kill me, you can go and kill me because I know I'm doing the right thing. I'm doing the right thing for the fishers, and I'm standing on the behalf of the fishers to bring the union. So from me, myself, they blacklist me from the companies. I can never join any vessel to go to sea again.
Sorry. So these are fascinating things to me because when they say we send you to the north or to Benin, those are places where the voodoo is still strong.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating to me because, again, when we think of Western concepts of what is decent work and, you know, what's a good policy, we don't take into considerations these other dimensions, but they are very real here. And so, yeah, I think it's all important to learn about what forms part of the way reality works here, and then to try and mend it together with those good policies and templates that we do have.
Of course.
Okay, so maybe then let's take that segue and think a little bit about policy. I'm just wondering where the state is. Because if there's a company saying, if you join a union, then you're not going to be able to fish, is the state there at all to enforce your rights to join a union? Or is there someone you can turn to? Or is the state relatively absent when it comes to these labor negotiations?
No, I think just recently things have changed a lot and improved a lot. So in the last 2 years, a tripartite group has formed, which is made up of the regulators, so that is the state, the labor, which is represented by the union, and then the employers, represented by the industry. So I think with the formation of this work and fishing committee, as they call it, there has been a lot more involvement and also a lot more awareness building within the government. But I think we're realizing now that there are some really well-intentioned people there. They really do want to do the right thing by the fishers, but they're still learning all of these realities. You know, they hear things about fishing and about the harbor, but then they sit in an office in Accra and it's not the same thing.
For the regulators or GMA, we call them GMA, Ghana Maritime Authority. Uh-huh. They are the regulators of the fishers or the fishing vessel or any kind of vessel over here. But they don't come on field to go to the sea, to do the practicals, to see what exactly is over there. So they just sit at their office until the time the union came with awareness that we want to form a union for the fishers and all those things. So anything that the union bring up was what the Ghana Maritime Authority are using now, or the fisheries are also using now, because they don't know the actual work they have to do on board the vessels.
Well, and they told us, for example, we do pre-departure inspections now, and every sailor has to have a bunk, bed with 2 pillows. Yes, and a bank account and a social security account. And we make sure there's all these things. And then all of you fishers at the table said, none of this is happening. Yeah. And somebody else was showing a video on electronic monitoring. And there's fishers there with, clearly no PPE, but also not even a t-shirt on. And just, you could see the practices. And this guy just said, is this legal? And all the fishers said, no, it's not. So it's just this disjoint between what is written in policy or what would be the good thing to do. And then I guess also probably what is reported back from the port, because maybe we should mention that the regulators also get fish, right? There's no one who doesn't get fish.
They all get fish. When you come, and then the fisheries man will come and say, "The captain, look at the nets you are using. is small. It's not up to the measurement.
The mesh size is too small.
So the captain just say, "Oh, take this fish and go." Then they take the fish, and then
the mesh size is fine.
Yeah. And then the maritime man, Ghana Maritime Authority man will come. Captain, this thing are not good. It's not. Oh, take a fish and go. Then they take the fish and they leave and go. So a lot of things are happening, and those are the blockages. I think we don't have a good people who will come into the port to inspect the bad things that are going on in the port.
So it's interesting. Vanessa before was calling it a disjoint. You're calling it a blockage. I see many different things going on here, like a sort of a drive towards formality in a very informal system. You've got policy which derives itself on an international frame versus local cultural beliefs in voodoo. You've got long-standing relationships between fishers and fish mummies, and you've got these new relationships which are developing between captains and the inspectors or the labor or the authority, as you mentioned before. So how do you imagine things moving forward in a dreamlike way? So imagine 5 years down the line, what's the perfect situation for fisherfolk?
Yeah, for the perfect thing to be done in the next 5 years, we have to have honest members from the union and from the GMA, which is Ghana Maritime Authority, and then the fisheries, to inspect whenever the vessel is going, to inspect whether things are right or not, for them to be as a security for the fishers, so that we can have a bright future in the industry by the next 5 years. I see if you have all these 3 people join together to do inspections, nothing will go wrong.
What about from your perspective, Vanessa?
Well, I feel quite hopeful because I see how much Ghana has achieved in just 2 years. And it's really a big leap on the policy level. And I also fully understand that it hasn't translated into tangible changes for fishers in many cases. And so I can understand their frustration. But from what I can see, I know, first of all, that policies take a long time to come about and to be implemented. And so I'm very hopeful and optimistic because I can see now that the tripartite constituents are talking to each other, and they've told us, we used to have to send a letter and it would take a week to get to the other agency and then another week for them to reply. And now, because we have this working fishing committee, we can pick up the phone and talk to each other and say, I need you to check this in port for me. And then the other issue is the lack of trust, right, of fishers towards the regulators and even the union in some cases. And that's something the regulators, especially from Ghana Maritime Authority as well, have voiced to us.
I wonder if, and really I only have 2 more questions, I promise. I find this totally fascinating. But I wonder if the issue of trust relates in some way on the other side as well, on the side of the authority and the side of policymakers, because they gather knowledge in a very different way. Right? The knowledge which is gathered by fishers is through experience. It's through their body. It's through their work. It's from being out at sea. Things they see with their eyes and feel with their hands. That sort of knowledge is somehow not put on the same level as knowledge which is gained in other ways. And is there any way to close that gap?
To me, the solution is that regulators and policymakers need to have more exposure to the beach, as I'm calling it. It's actually the vessel. I'm not saying they have to go on fishing trips, but they have to engage with fishers directly and not get it through some third-party report. And I think that's also part of the issue, because here and in many other places, you have these hierarchies where it's almost impossible then for someone from government to actually go and speak to a fisher on a one-on-one basis. And that's something we can do as researchers very easily, right?
All righty. Thank you so much both for your time, Bright and Vanessa. It's been absolutely fascinating. I could speak to you all day, but I know you're both really busy. And I know I also asked you to turn off the air conditioning unit so the sound's a bit better. So you must be really hot. So I don't want to keep you any longer than necessary. Thank you so much for coming on Fishy Work.
Thank you too. It's been a pleasure. We look forward to hearing it.
And as always, it gives me great pleasure to welcome our not in the net, the indefatigable, I can't say that word, the person who's never tired, Alin Kadfak. Hey, Alin, how did you enjoy listening to Vanessa and Bright?
Oh, that's excellent. I learned a lot, actually. And, this is so interesting when you invite people from who actually have been working on unionizations and have been working with fish worker for a long time. And Bright himself has been a fish worker himself. So it's very rich experience to listen to.
Ah, wonderful. Okay, so what should we take away from that interview?
Actually, you already kind of summarized a bit of that interview for me. So I learned a lot from your summarizations of the last part of the talk. Maybe we say two things, what we learned from this podcast is that, as you mentioned, Ian, the formalization of labor rights and union may lead to certain bondage. And I think what Bright and Vanessa was mentioning is that, when you formalize something, and similarly to the case of Thailand, we have new problems, which I call it a document bondage in the case of Thailand, but in the case of Ghana, there's different kind of bondage, and the flow of the money has not been has been limited, right? So the individual worker become more formalized, but it didn't actually create more trust among workers themselves, right? So that's one thing. So the formalization doesn't always lead into a good thing in terms of unionization, and it's rightly so when you say about the creative solidarity. So it might actually lose trust within the complex micropolitics of the fisheries within Ghana.
Okay, and why was it important?
The Ghanaian case is super interesting because the complexity between the mismatch between internal actor and external actor, right? As Vanessa mentioned, that EU has gave yellow card twice to Ghana, and they're trying to improve the situation and on illegal fishing, is particularly on the cycle fish, right? The transshipment from the large-scale trawl to the small-scale fishing that carry those cycle fish from the long-distance trawl into the harbor. The top-down policy actually miss out a lot on the complexity of micropolitics of Ghanaian fisheries. And I really like how Vanessa mentions about the fish being currency, being a social glue among the actor, without understanding the complexity of these different actors on the ground, we cannot improve the situations of illegal fishing. So that's where the Ghanaian case become very interesting and very current debate in the attempt to try to improve the illegal fishings worldwide.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Dare I ask the question, do you know where I'm going next month? What's next on Fishy Work, or is it a mystery still?
It's still a mystery. Let's think it through. They can go anywhere. It can continue to be union, or actually I'm thinking about masculinity, which might be a possibility that I think we actually haven't have gender into fishy work. Okay. And it's something that I'm not familiar with, so I think I want to learn more on that part.
Brilliant. Okay.
What do you think?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm looking forward to see where you send me next time. Thank you so much again for all your amazing insights, Alin, and see you in a month.
Great. See you then. Bye.
Fishy Work is part of the Just Seafood project, a collaboration between the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences in Sweden, the University of Ottawa in Canada, the Institute of Social Sciences of the Central Region, Vietnam, and the Cambodia Development Resource Institute in Cambodia. It's funded by the Swedish Research Council for Sustainable Development, FORMAS, and the Swedish Research Council, VR. The project's principal investigator is Dr. Alin Kadvak, and I've been your host, Ian M. Cook. If you would like to get in touch, and we really hope you do, then please go to justseafood.org. That is JUSTSEAFOOD.org, and you can find all of our details there. And not only that, you can also find much more information and research relating to the topic, and you can also find full transcripts of the podcast episodes. Finally, everybody says it in podcast, and everybody says it because it's true, that please do leave ratings and reviews if you are so inclined, because it really does help more people find out about the show.